So, hi Robert, can you see
Hello.
me?
I can. Can you see me?
Yes, I can. Good morning.
Good morning. You can hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, good.
I was just sharing on the video about the Love Your Practice event
Mm-hmm.
and how you're going to be one of the speakers at the event. And I was really excited that they're offering this because in school, they really don't get to focus too much on this topic.
Mm-hmm.
And at least in school, we learn, well, this is kind of the model that you run. You run two or three treatment rooms at a time, and they're privatized. And there's all these different models available that a lot of people just aren't exposed to. So I know that you have gone through private practice and now you do community style. You've been a teacher as well at schools. So why don't you talk to our viewers a little bit about you, what led you to acupuncture, and how you discovered these different models that you've been able to enjoy throughout the years.
Okay. I guess I'd have to go back to when I was in acupuncture school, and that was uh, that was back in the 90s, 1993. I actually started studying with a Chinese acupuncturist and herbalist in my neighborhood for about 6 months, and I absolutely fell in love with acupuncture and decided I wanted to continue. And the only way to do that was to go to school. And when I got into school, I had already spent 6 months with this Chinese doctor, and the way that he taught, it was like the equivalent of about 18 months of classroom instruction at the school. So I was kind of already well into my second year in terms of the knowledge, and I was just absolutely reading everything that I could about the subject, and I really fell in love, particularly with the Japanese meridian therapy, the books, the Matsumoto and Birch books, which are, five element, 10 stem, and how to diagnose this, and decided that I wanted to look into those. And so at the time in school, we were able to do externships, which I don't believe people have been able to do for many years.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was able to get an externship with somebody who had studied some of these techniques with Stephen Birch. Actually, he'd taken some seminars with Stephen Birch. So
Wow.
the externship was at a community clinic. It was in the 90s, and so it was right in the middle of the AIDS crisis. And so it was an HIV community clinic, and it was all open. This is 1995, 94, 95, and it was all open. There was, four tables and a couple of massage spots off to the side, and it was a really good, tight community, and everybody knew one another. It was a great, great feeling, and I got to learn. Sorry about that. I got to learn a lot about. I got to learn a lot about the style that I was interested in, and also it was my first exposure to a community clinic setting. Um, so I got pretty tight with this practitioner. He became a mentor to me, and we went to a lot of seminars together and learned a lot of these techniques. And this was still when I was a student. And at the time in Illinois, acupuncture was a class 3 felony. I'm sorry, class
Wow.
2 felony. So I always tell students I graduated acupuncture school into a life of crime because if you were not a physician, you could be arrested. And they were actually like raiding acupuncture clinics in Chicago at the time.
Wow.
So my mentor decided that he didn't want to stick around anymore. And so he cut me in, and another guy, he cut us in on his practice. And this was in a rheumatologist's office, a doctor's office. So we were practicing under a doctor's license. And because of the law, the doctor didn't want us to use needles, which for me was no problem because I'd been studying all these, how to use magnets and teishi and all these non-insertive type of things. So I worked at a rheumatologist's office, and that was just like right when I was graduating school. It was like started end of my last year in school, and I worked there for about 4 years. And it was a great experience coming out of school. I saw a lot of patients, and also it showed me some things that I didn't like to do. It was all insurance based, and I wasn't crazy about doing that. And it was a long commute. There was many reasons why I didn't want to continue. So I kind of cut ties with that clinic, and I sort of bounced around a little while. I had a home practice in my apartment, second floor apartment in Chicago, and there was good points and bad points about that. My wife really liked it because I cleaned every day, so she'd come home from work to a spotlessly clean house. But there's also, having a home practice, if you're on a second floor walk up, you know, it excludes certain patients, and sometimes you just don't want to have patients know where you live, things like that. So I kind of bounced around for the next couple of years, trying out different situations, and I got the call from my old school, Midwest College, in '99 to come and teach. And the person who was the main teacher there, John Parag, was moving to Minnesota. And I was going to take over some of his classes. And he asked me if I wanted to buy his practice. And I said,
Hmm.
sure, And so, and that was actually a really smart decision on my part. It was a really good practice decision because we had similar way of being and similar styles. The one thing that he had that I had never had before was a granule pharmacy. And when I was in school, we didn't have herbs. So I kind of learned herbs by like looking things up. I would put the needles in the patient and say, okay, rest for 20 minutes. And I'd go in the back and look up things in Bensky, oh my God, I got to fill this, I got to write this formula, So I wrote formulas quickly, I learned how to, look things up in the book really, really quickly, which helped me later when I was going to teach herbs because in herbs, like 80% of what you need to know is where to look in the book to find out, what herbs you want to use or what formulas you want to use. So I got very familiar with that. And then, as fate would have it, in 2002, my mother-in-law retired, and my wife is from Cuba, and I was in Chicago, and my mother-in-law decided she wanted to retire where Cuban exiles retire, which is Hialeah. And so she offered to, kind of help us get settled there if we would go down with her. And my
Hmm.
wife is her only, was her wife's the daughter, right? The eldest daughter, and so the eldest daughter takes care of her mother, right? So we moved to Florida. So I had a good practice going, and I had a teaching gig and everything, but I decided to go to Florida, check out Florida. It's much better license than Illinois. And so we came down. I didn't know anybody. My son was born at Memorial Regional in Hollywood, and I had like no source of income. I started teaching again, and I started in the clinic at CIOM, which later became AMC.
Hmm.
And I spent quite a bit of time then teaching over the next few years. And I wound up teaching herbs, and I wound up then kind of getting groomed to teach or getting tapped to teach herbs at Academy for Five Element because their herb teacher, Thea Elijah, I don't know if you know her, but she was leaving. She was going to Vermont. And so some of the AFIA students had come to sit in on my classes, and they recommended me. So I wound up teaching at both AMC and AFIA, but the interesting thing was that at AFIA, I was an herbalist. And I was it was a specialty herb clinic. So we were seeing the patients and just writing formulas for the patients. I wasn't doing any
Wow.
acupuncture or anything like that because the two programs are separate because of the
Hmm.
whole thing with the Worsley style. And so I went in with one of the teachers there, the director of the clinic, Isaac Gorin, and I did, because I was the herb teacher there, I got mostly herb referrals, and so I had a granule pharmacy, and I was doing, mostly custom herbs for people with some acupuncture. And we wound up losing our lease after a few
Oh,
years, and so I just decided that I was going to try something different. And about 2006, I started to read on the internet about community acupuncture, which was, kind of a burgeoning movement at the time, and it was spearheaded by the clinic in Portland, Working Class Acupuncture, Lisa Rohleder and Skip Van Meter, and they'd had kind of a group of people that had gathered together on the internet to sort of share these best practices, and I was on that group for a while, and then I finally decided that I wanted to start a community acupuncture clinic. And I had a little cash saved up. I took the last of the cash that I had saved up, and I opened the practice at the end of 2008. And so the official opening was January 2009, but I was sort of semi-officially seeing patients at the end of 2008. So now it's been 10 years. Um, and uh, and so it's been quite a process since then, but that's pretty much how I came to doing community acupuncture.
yeah. So you've had extensive experience in all
I've been through a lot
different
of different practice
models.
models. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what about community acupuncture resonates so much with you that you've been doing this for a consistent 10 years?
Um, I like, I like the accessibility of it. And I mentioned before that I don't really like billing insurance, and I like the
No one does.
simplicity. Yeah, I like the, you come in, I treat you, you pay me, simple. And I kind of got tired of the sticker shock when people would, you'd be talking to people and they'd be saying, "Oh, this sounds great. Really? Wow. My allergies can go away. Sure. How much is it?" And then I tell them and they'd say, "Oh, well, okay." And it seemed like something that was a way to be able to um, see people for less money. The trick was that you had to kind of build up volume. You had to build up the volume. But I like the accessibility of it. It's like, why not try it at that price point, right? The next thing that comes up is the needle thing, and either they're down with it or they're not down with it, and then that's okay. If you're not down with it, that's fine. But I think it's one of the things about acupuncture is that it's kind of unique. I've talked to a lot of people from different professions, massage therapists, psychotherapists, and things like that. And people are like, I'd really like to do something like that, but how can I do it? Psychoanalysis, you have group therapy, I guess, but massage therapy, it's hard. You can't, massage two people with either hand or something. So acupuncture, because of the whole needle retention thing, it becomes a kind of a unique thing that you can actually practice in this way. Um, I like the diversity of it, which comes along with the accessibility, but it's hands down, the most diverse practice that I've ever had. I live right in the neighborhood. I moved my office to be about 3 blocks from my house, and my neighborhood is majority Latino, and my neighborhood is, there's a lot of Caribbean, uh, Jamaican, Guyanese, Trinis, things like that. Um, you know, on any given day, you see all kinds of people in my clinic, and it didn't used to be that way. There was a certain clientele that you would tend to see, and that was it. So the diversity of it is really cool.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get people, and you don't. It's like you're communicating with gestures or sign language or something, and it's totally cool because they're into it. They really enjoy it. There's tourists, like French Canadians. There's a lot of French Canadians who come in, to Hollywood in the tourist season. So all kinds of people, Haitians, all kinds of people speaking all kinds of different languages.
That's
I like
amazing.
the Yeah, I like the volume of it. I really like treating patients with acupuncture, and I'm kind of introverted, and so I don't really necessarily like talking with people for long periods of time. When I was teaching at the Five Element School, Five Element practitioners are used to talking to the patient for like an hour before they figure out what they want to do, and as the supervisor, I bounce from room to room because I get really bored, because within about 15 minutes, I would think, okay, I know what I want to do with this patient, let me see your
Yeah.
tongue, okay, all right, I got a formula, so I, I like the pace of it. I like having a lot of people. I like treating a lot of people and kind of getting it done. Sometimes it gets to be a little overwhelming because I take walk-ins and sometimes the room is full and you got to manage the walk-ins and things like that. Um, it's like waiting tables sometimes, you've got to strategize who's ready and who's not and things like that. But it makes for a really interesting work environment, really, and so I really enjoy that. And I guess I would say that out of all the practice models that I've had, it fits my values the best. It feels the most
Oh,
like what the Buddhists would call right livelihood. Of course, if you're an acupuncturist, you're helping people. It doesn't matter what practice model, it doesn't matter, what kind of acupuncture you do, who you serve, you're always helping people. But
yeah.
there's something to me that feels like it really falls in line with my values and with just trying to do something about the state of the world today. It's just my small contribution to kind of making things better for as many people as I can.
So with the alignment with your views is more of being able, sorry, to help as many people and being able to see as, a large variety or a diversity of people, as you mentioned, for a
Right.
lower
Yeah.
price point. So what is the
Yeah.
typical,
Accessibility.
right? What's the typical fee schedule for a community style model?
Um, that varies with the clinic, but I started with CAN, and then when CAN transformed into CAN is Community Acupuncture Network, and then it transformed into People's Organization of Community Acupuncture. And for a long while, there was a range that you could charge and be listed in their clinic listing, and that was between $15 and $40, sliding scale, no proof of income. So you come in, and it's like you pay what works for you. You pay what you want. And I started charging 20 to 40, which means that most of the patients will pay on the lower end of the scale. They'll pay 20, which is fine. I mean, that's why I have that as the scale. Some people say that when drop the lower end of the scale, you'll get a higher volume or more patients, but it's
Mhm.
20 at the bottom has always worked for me. So most people will pay 20. If you're going to calculate uh, in terms of like budgeting, usually the rule of thumb is whatever the lower end of your scale is, add $2. So, I average about $22 per patient. Um, Outside of that, people do all kinds of, fee ranges. You have to base it on your overhead. You have to base it on, there's a sweet spot between managing your overhead and making it sustainable, which includes paying yourself and making it attractive to people and making it accessible, affordable to as many people as possible. But for polka, it's always been sort of between $15 and $40 for the scale. And some people pay me 60. Some people pay out above the scale.
Yeah,
So the
that
usual
works
is the
out.
bottom of the scale. It all comes out in the wash. And the higher your volume, the bigger the wash cycle, the more sustainable you are. So that's the trick, really. The trick is to build the volume and then to maintain it. And there are times when it's slow, and there are times when it's really bustling, and so you have to kind of budget for that too.
So on a good hour, how many clients or patients would you see in an hour?
In an hour, I have
Unless,
nine
yeah,
chairs. I have nine
okay.
chairs, and nine chairs is about uh, uh, usual treatment time is about 45 minutes. Although if somebody really wants to rest, I'll try and keep them in that chair as long as possible. Most people are pretty much done at 45 minutes. And I take about 5 minutes per patient. 5 to 10 minutes is how much I have scheduled. I've got 6 slots in my schedule, but I've got 9 chairs. And that's for walk-ins and people who are late, people who are early. And so um, I can take 9 per hour. Do I always get 9 per hour? No, usually the average is something more like 5 per hour, and
Mm.
sometimes it's a little less, and sometimes it's 9 per hour, 10 per hour. You've got people waiting. It depends on the day. Saturday is usually busy, for example.
Saturdays are your busiest days.
Saturdays are definitely busiest days because people work, you know,
Yeah.
and evening hours are popular. Wednesday evening I'm there from 3:30 to 7, and that's easily my second most popular shift. And so in
Wow.
3 hours you'd see 18 people in 3 hours or something. On
Yeah.
Saturday, so 20 to 30 people is pretty common on Saturday, and that's a 4 hour shift basically, 4 needling hours.
So it sounds like this is a really good practice model for someone that is quick on their feet, high energy, and can be able to create a treatment plan pretty quickly for their clients.
Yeah, yeah. It's even good for old people like me. As it actually, keeps my back in shape, to tell you the truth. Because
Keeps you
sometimes
on
you
your
really gotta
toes.
yeah, you really gotta move, and I'm up and down. I have a rolling stool, so I'm up and down in the rolling stool all the time. Um, Yes, yes to all of that. And, in the common wisdom for people hiring community acupuncture clinics, because the bigger clinics tend to hire. Mine is small. I don't do huge volume, and so I've got enough for me. But bigger community acupuncture clinics, they usually, when they're interviewing the acupuncturist, they ask them if they have experience waiting tables or working at a Starbucks or something, because
Oh,
you kind of have to be able to manage things much like that, much like it's a fast-paced service kind of a business.
move
Um,
quickly.
yeah, and as far as making diagnostic decisions quickly, um, it's I'll say this: I felt really good coming into it after 14 years of experience, in that I can diagnose pretty quickly. Diagnosis really in uh, Asian medicine is about what are the available treatment options. And if you're going to do acupuncture, it comes down to what are the points, the point combinations. You start to develop things, point combinations that you like, doing it pretty quickly. So it can go quick. 5 minutes is a long time, 10 minutes is a really long time. And if you're just starting out, there's nothing better to learn how to see patients quickly than seeing patients quickly, if you know what I mean. It can be a
Yes.
little intimidating at first, but a lot of times people start off with things like the Miriam Lee protocol, the Richard Tan stuff, the acupuncture 1, 2, 3 is really popular. I don't do any of that stuff. I adapted the meridian therapy that I've been doing all along, and that was a job too, because I had to cut out the stuff that I couldn't really do in a community clinic. And so it's been a process for me of refining that style down to the essentials. But I think, you know, this was always my thing with acupuncture schools. People would ask me about going to an acupuncture school, and they'd be looking at the website and reading the catalog, and I would say, schedule an appointment at the clinic, because if the clinic's really busy, chances are you'll get a good education, because there's only so much that you can get by looking at PowerPoints in a classroom, right?
Yeah.
You don't really learn to treat patients by doing anything other than treating patients. And so if you want to get a lot of experience really quickly, and a lot of these people who start off in community acupuncture practices, they'll see 5,000 people in a year, right? They'll do 5,000 treatments in a year. My generation, it was like you'd do 5,000 treatments in 10 years or something. You do 5,000 treatments, and if you're lucky, you're doing 1,000 treatments a year. So people who are graduating and getting into community acupuncture now, they're getting a really, really accelerated clinical experience, and you get confidence that way. And with confidence comes better results, frankly. If you go into it feeling confident, your results will be better. There's actually
Yeah, of
studies
course.
that there's actually studies that confirm that too.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
It's
interesting.
I
Yeah.
can I can send it to you. Yeah, it's part of those of the German acupuncture studies. I posted
Yes,
it on
please
Facebook
send it
a
to
couple
us.
years ago.
Yeah. That'd
Yeah,
be great to look at.
the more you believe in your treatment, the better your results. So believe in your treatment, believe in what you do. Pick a style. I always tell people, pick a style that you resonate with. And that's when you're a student or a young practitioner, you're looking around for things. But for me, I kind of held fast onto the meridian therapy, and I've been doing it pretty much, that's been my main treatment for 25 years. And it becomes like a part of you, Then when things get really crazy with walk-ins and it gets really fast-paced, you just have that down. And the more you do it, it's like Kung Fu, right? This is the original meaning of Kung Fu is not just martial arts. Kung Fu is effort that takes a long time to master. So anything can be Kung Fu. Calligraphy can be Kung Fu, anything. And acupuncture can be Kung Fu too. Especially if you kind of stick to a type of acupuncture, you get to be really, really proficient at it. And so I think it really becomes about mastery in that sense. This is why doing continuing ed and things like that, there's not a lot that I'm excited about out there. I'm excited about finding out more about the stuff that I do, finding new ways to do it, new things to treat with it, And so I always tell people that's where, in my opinion anyway, that's the treatment effectiveness is not necessarily in the style or in the points. The treatment effectiveness is in you. It's Fukushima Kodo said acupuncture is an extension of people's love for other human beings. Their compassion. And so when the acupuncture becomes a part of it, when it becomes a reflection of who you are, when it becomes an expression of your deepest values, when it becomes an expression of what's in your deepest heart, then really incredible things can happen. Really, really, really magical things can happen. And I've seen a lot more of those over the last few years than I'd seen for 20 years prior.
Wow, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's very powerful.
That's what I'm here for.
So before we wrap up, what would be one piece of advice that you can give like a newcomer to our field or someone that's trying to still figure out what their practice model should look like? What would be one advice that you could give them?
I think you always hear, if you look in any of these entrepreneurial classes or anything, they always say, know your why. Know why it is that you're doing this. And, it's a given that, with acupuncture, usually people say, well, I want to help people, but, what people, how do you want to help them? And whatever it is that connected you deeply with the acupuncture, go with that. And so for me, it's just doing things that, like I say, doing this particular style and doing it for as many people as possible. I've really found a place where I feel like I'm really, really doing good. So I think it's, you really want to connect with what it is that really lights you up about acupuncture. What is it? Do you like doing, do you like doing lifestyle type stuff? Do you like working with the patient on their diet? What is it that really gets you going, that really makes it interesting for you? Because if you don't serve that, you'll get burned out, you'll get bored. And then figure out how to do it. Figure out what practice models will allow you to do that. And the patients will come, I think, when you align with that. I think that, of course, everybody, people have loans to pay and people have expenses and things like that, but don't just go for a practice model because you think it'll make you a bunch of money, because I think you'll burn out, because really the best thing to me anyway about doing this is to be able to kind of connect with that passion, that happy space in me, that thing that really lights me up, that thing that really connects me. And that keeps you going, because you'll have good times and you'll have bad times. There will be times when, the money's rolling in, and there are times when the money's not rolling in. And if you're connected with that, then you'll always be happy to go to work.
Awesome. Thank you. And so you're going to be at the Love Your Practice event June 8th and 9th, and you're going to
Yeah,
be talk.
I'll be there June 9th because I'll be treating patients on June 8th on Saturday.
Okay, so
But the event is June 8th and June 9th. I'll be on two of the panels, I think,
okay, great. On the
on
Sunday the
Sunday.
9th.
On Sunday
Okay.
the 9th,
And
I'll specifically be there. But there's a lot of other. It looks like there's a lot of other good. There's a lot of good stuff I'll be missing
yeah, we have
on Saturday.
a couple of people that are going to be doing the interview with us on the Facebook group. So there's a lot of really interesting topics and speakers. But do you have any upcoming workshops or classes that?
I do, I don't. Maybe in the fall I should. I haven't really been doing it. I've mostly just been, in the clinic, and my son is a teenager now, so, and he's very
Oh,
active. So there's
yeah.
all that, driving him around and things. And but there are some things that I'm writing actually. I'm doing a lot of writing, and so I'm hoping to put some stuff out in the near future. But there's nothing. I got nothing to plug.
Thank you so much. You are
Thank
definitely
you.
an inspiration to me. When um, I met you through Tiffany Wood. Before
Yes.
I think I enrolled into acupuncture school, and the first thing I heard about you was that you were an amazing herbalist. And yeah, everyone was raving about what like an incredible, effective herbalist you were. And when I met you, you were starting to transition to your community style. And the way that you teach and the way that you share your passion and love for this medicine has always stayed with me. And I'm always sending people your way. And I encourage everyone, if you haven't experienced a community style acupuncture treatment, definitely go check out Robert at Presence Community Acupuncture in Hollywood. It is powerful, it is amazing, and it will really expand your perspective on what a clinic should look like. So, yeah, thank you so much for everything that you do, everything that you have done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words, and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, well, if you ever want to do another one and talk about what you're writing or um, for more community style tidbits, just let me know. I would love to have you on.
All right. Sounds good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye, everyone. Have a beautiful day, Robert.
Thanks, you too.
All right.